Yes, I declare holy war on tax season and all those who participate in it. But indeed, we are here for another episode of Pony Express Radio. Always gets you right in the mood listening to the old William Tell Overture every week. But we're here to talk about, kind of a sad and tragic story tonight, but one we must discuss nonetheless. But first, welcome me back to the show, Mr. P. Quinones. How are you, my friend?
Glad to be back. Enjoyed the week off last week, but happy to be here.
Indeed, always happy to have you here. And we got our guest tonight, Mr. Tim Kelly. How are you, sir?
Very well. Thanks for having me on.
Do you want to give yourself a very brief introduction to the audience, those who might not be familiar with you?
I host a podcast called Art Interesting Times, I guess for almost 11 years now. I also do a show with Joe Atwell, a weekly show, Powers and Principalities. We talk about various topics, historical, sometimes, topical, current issues, whatever comes up. That's pretty much it.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, sir, to discuss this story. But first, we got to make sure all the lights are kept on over here. So we must get through all of our list of sponsors as we do every week. So, gentlemen in the chat, everyone knows it is White Boy Winter right now. Eventually, White Boy Summer will return. But for those of you who are stuck in the frozen polar vortex over the next couple of days, maybe you want to stay inside in your home gyms and get shredded with Axios Remote Fitness and Coaching. Link is down in the description, and you guys can get shredded. JD's going to whip you guys into shape because eventually White Boy Summer will return again. While you're at it, if you want your caffeine fix, head on over to Fox & Sons Coffee. Link is also in the description right there. And in addition to that, head on over to get your nicotine fix because we here at the OGC are fans of big tobacco by heading over to Alp nicotine pouches. I've actually got quite a few stashed away in my desk in the office right now to get me through tax season. It's a great way to kick yourself into gear and remain focused. So get yourself some Alp nicotine pouches. In addition to that, if you guys want to be looking super duper sharp for the rest of the year, head on over to Vendrillo Suits. The link is in the description right there. All of the best OGC guys are wearing a Vendrillo suit, and you can immediately tell who's got one of them and who doesn't when we gather together for the conferences every year. They really do stand out. Top quality product indeed. And if you guys want to increase your American history knowledge and your IQ in general, please head on over to Tall Men Books, run by our good friend, Mr. George Bagby, who has done some excellent work bringing some books back into print from the turn of the 20th century and the 19th century as well. So head on over to Tall Man Books. All right. With that out of the way, gentlemen, we are going to discuss one of the when we look back in history, this is surely going to be one of the things we are judged most harshly for in our time. Everything from, of all the myriad of issues that we face in our time, whether it's like mass immigration, drooning out, all the decrease in religiosity in the United States. This one truly is going to be one of the most horrible ones. And we are going to talk about the subject of abortion. It's coming up on the 1 year now since Roe V Wade was overturned, which, many people in the pro-life movement thought was just impossible, could never be done. But Donald Trump, they did do that. So credit where credit is due on that one. And then, of course, this weekend, there will be plenty of guys who are going to be heading to the March for Life in Washington, D.C. This weekend as well. So I don't know, what do we think just in the year out since Roe versus Wade has actually been overturned? It's actually kind of been a bit of a quiet topic in the last year because, mass immigration, foreign policy, whatever's kind of taken the front stage. But I don't know, maybe we could just start around the horn here and just see well, Pete, you're in the South. So, not too much as it relates to like a free flowing abortion state, down there. But, well, do you think that this is something that it just seems to me like this issue has just gone by the wayside in the thinking of most people, but it really got a resurgence this last week in Virginia when Spanberger just came in and immediately is like, oh, nope, we're going to put abortions up till birth on the ballot this fall for the vote. So I think this story is coming back with a vengeance.
Well, down here, it's not if people were getting it down here, they weren't really advertising them. No one's bragging about it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of a change it has made. You don't read a lot of articles about it since it went since went away. I don't know. I don't know that I've noticed much of anything. I do follow Alabama news a lot, and this really just not mentioned. And when it was overturned, I mean, yay, a lot of people, churches celebrated, but then they just went right back to business as usual. So I mean, you're not going to have any protests here. You're not going to have, if you do have people protesting here, it's going to be 5 people, and it's going to be like old white libs who live in like Hoover, right outside of Birmingham. So yeah, not a lot here. Yeah.
Tim, do you have any thoughts on this matter, just on the local level or state level for abortion?
Well, just not to spurg out, but the Dobbs decision came down in 2022, and so we're coming up on will be 4 years this spring. But the Roe v Wade was reversed. Roe v Wade, of course, was passed January 22nd, 1973. So this is the anniversary of that landmark decision, and also its companion ruling, Doe versus Bolton. There's always been a certain geography to abortion, and you could say that Roe v. Wade was the imposition of New York and California abortion law in the rest of the country. And that geography doesn't really change much. Where people go to get abortions, it's a left coast, east coast phenomenon. There's some flyover countries like Illinois was very liberal. There's some, but right now, as it stands now, 2026, there are 14 states that have total bans. Alabama being one of them, Texas, with the exception of for life, and of course there's California, New York, which enshrine protection via statutes in the Constitution. So it's abortion itself. Again, it's obviously it's a crime. It's a horrible thing, but it's also a symptom of something. It's a symptom of the culture of death, which expresses itself most prominently in the idea of sexual liberation. Obviously, sexual intercourse has a unitive and procreative function, and often when people have sexual intercourse, a human being is created, a child is created, and that child is a reminder that there's no such thing as sexual liberation or sexual freedom, because there's always consequences for one's actions, and from those actions there's responsibilities. And so it's inevitably when in the 1960s, when I think it started to get broad cultural appeal, the sexual revolution, the idea of sexual freedom with normalization and proliferation of pornography, abortion was inevitable, really, given the cultural trends, the cultural war that was being waged. Abortion itself, the Roe v. Wade decision, of course, was preceded by the Griswold decision, Griswold versus Connecticut, which the Supreme Court discovered a right to contraception under the guise of the right to privacy. And then they immediately started publicly funding contraception, meaning it wasn't a private matter at all. It's a very public matter because taxpayer dollars was used to pay for it. The same thing occurred with abortion, notwithstanding the Hyde Amendment. So that's where we stand. It's done its damage. I don't know how many deaths are there. 60 million, maybe, in the United States.
Yeah, it was about that much when I was last looking at the numbers. Yeah, 60 to 65 million.
And it's interesting because you look at issues like mass immigration, the Great Replacement, and you can't separate it from abortion because, quite frankly, we look at the plummeting birth rates throughout the West. All that was, of course, preceded by liberalized abortion laws. And so you could say that the embrace of legalized abortion by the West was a sign that the West itself didn't want to live anymore. And so they embraced sexual liberation, sexual freedom, contraception, and abortion, and the birth rates plummet. And of course, God will not be mocked, and nature abhors a vacuum. And as a result of that, we're told that we need people to come in and fill the breach with cheap labor. And that's what what's happening in Europe and Ireland and the United States. I think it was Chuck Schumer, who I think a year or so ago was outside of the Capitol. I think campaigning or promoting in a press conference what's that immigration thing? The American Dream Act. Dream Act, was it? Dream Act. And he said it's necessary to bring people in from the four corners of the world because Americans just aren't having children anymore. But why is that, Chuck? So.
Yeah, they feed you the poison and then try to sell you the cure, and the cure is just more poison.
Yeah. So that's all I have to say, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the angle for mass immigration about this because I saw our friend across the pond, Mr. Carl Benjamin, actually did a video about this week because the new abortion numbers came in for England.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, where they just had a sharp increase in abortions in the last 2 years, and it's actually almost identical, the number of abortions versus the number of, allegedly illegal immigrants that they have caught and they've found in the UK. I mean, they're letting in way more people through legal means, like legal migrants, but it was actually crazy when he was doing the math that it was almost 1-to-1 with the illegal immigrants that they have caught in the UK versus the amount of abortions that they had in a year, which is just nuts.
Yeah, and like I said, how do you claim a birthright if you're not giving birth? Right? And so, I mean, you could say it's karma or it's God's, wrath. Ireland embraced abortion in 2018 with a referendum and also embraced same-sex marriage. That is a symptom of Irish people's declining Catholic faith. And I would say, again, if there was a society that had a high birth rate or even a replacement level birth rate, would be a symptom of a society that has faith in the future and also has the resiliency and the will to defend itself. And again, it's one of the things. It's not an obvious connection, but if you really think about it, there's a connection. If you are aborting your next generation, you will eventually be replaced because you're simply not there to maintain the claim on the land that you claim is yours. So,
yeah, it's another thing here as well. Like, I know there's a lot of popular arguments in our side of things about people saying, well, actually, it's good that we keep this legal because a large portion of abortions come from minority communities, and we don't want more of these people running around in our society, so abortion should remain legal. But I mean, if you're just looking at the pure numbers, if you are to address this argument, I mean, since it became legal in the United States, the majority of the people who haven't been aborted were white people. Oh,
you have to look at dynamically, because first of all, the fact that so many women are having abortions, it radiates to other issues and other cultural issues we have. The same women that willy-nilly go out and abort their unborn children are the same women that go up and show up at anti-ICE protests in many respects, or at least support it. And so you just can't look at that. Another thing is there's no progress outside the moral law. There's no shortcut. So again, embracing infanticide to solve a demographic problem is to me an attempted shortcut, and it's not. There's other things you can do. Obviously, the health and the continuation of Western civilization should not depend on killing other people in other countries or minority people in your own country that you've let in. That's to me, that's sort of again, you're not accepting responsibility for your own decisions if you start doing that. And a lot of those people again are living. I think if you embrace that attitude, you yourself are probably living a dissolute life, and then you have to look in the mirror and say, "Am I part of the problem?" So.
Yeah, I just find it very, very difficult to take that argument really seriously from. You really just can't tell me that the solution is just, we just got to kill more like black and brown babies in the United States, to fix our problems. I'm like, come on, man, really? This just doesn't pass the smell test to me. No.
Yeah, I saw it. There was a post I saw. It was by Black Pilled.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I know where he comes down on this subject. I'm sure.
Actually, he doesn't. He's against. He said that. Yeah, because he's not. I like him actually. I don't never talk, but I like him. I like him. I like
Yeah,
his
yeah.
person. I like his online personality. His approach to things. But he is, he's a former Mormon. So there you go. But anyway, he was lamenting the fact that the Catholic Church was only globally 30% white. And I go, and I sent him a tweet. I said, you don't understand the Catholic Church is universal. And I said, you might want to now, if you want to improve those numbers, why don't you get baptized and convert? Because that's again, you're dealing with a symptom of another problem. You're not dealing it properly. If you're, and again, he doesn't advocate abortion to solve the demographic issue. There's other things, those far humane and moral things you can do. Rather than resorting to infanticide to solve your demographic problems, because some of your people have decided not to procreate anymore for whatever reason.
Yeah,
there's a lot of other. I mean, I think it's like I think the biggest thing is it's a sign of decadence. It's also a sign of decadence that we have so many women in politics. Because there's no more, because you can either gonna have patriarchy or you're gonna have anarchy. And in the name of liberty, we've chosen moral anarchy, and that's why you have so many of these crazy women in politics, like Abigail Spanberger, who's just emblematic of these affluent suburban, boxed wine guzzling women that get into politics.
Oh yeah. Well, and then there's this. I mean, I'm sure this is where it was inevitable. This stream and this discussion was going to lean in this direction at some point. But nothing else will motivate women to go out into the polls than the abortion issue. And there's a lot of things going on with this one. I mean, we can go back to our basic red pill Manosphere talking points 101 here, and you just understand that well, abortion is the ultimate expression of hypergamy and the ultimate way for women to get out of bad decisions that she's made. But that doesn't quite account for the fact that why is it that women who would never get an abortion or choose to get an abortion still turn out in droves to enshrine this so-called right into law in so many places? Why is this the huge animating issue for women, even if they themselves will never participate in this thing? And there's a lot of questions there, but one of the things I think is a big part of this is just that the entire women's rights, whatever, I mean, you can argue if that should ever taken place in the first place. Obviously, everyone here would say no, but the whole kind of meme of women's rights has been wrapped up in, oh, well, if they take away one thing from us, they're coming for everything else. It's oh, we're one step away from the Handmaid's Tale. It's very productive. It's very productive propaganda for the left, because I mean, just look at the results, right? I mean, we all know that women aren't necessarily the most rational thinkers, but guys, they're kind of like children. It's if they just don't want the toy taken away from them.
Women and children.
And there's a certain level of narcissism there too. I posted something on Twitter today. It was from a recent nursing textbook, and it was they were focusing on diversity and cultural differences in response to pain. And under this certain group, we call them Jews, it says they may be vocal and demanding of assistance, but they believe that pain must be shared and validated by others. And I immediately thought, oh, so they're just women. And I mean, that's another thing about the whole abortion thing is okay, I'm doing this thing. I know deep down I'm hurting myself, but if you're not willing to, if people aren't willing to embrace what they're feeling, then they're going to have a response. They're going to find another response.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the way they've coped with this, with the horror of what they're doing, is by turning it into a positive and celebrating it.
Yeah, and if you watch the type of shows or media that's popular with particularly single women, because I know I run in other circles, and I've run often I go to events at my children's school, and I run into women who have multiple children, and you want to talk about women that are based. These are because they have children, they have families, they have responsibilities, and they're not neurotic and insane like so many single women who have sort of put off having children. They don't have these things that complement their female nature, the nurturing nature. They're out there being sort of brutalized at work, and they become sort of neurotic. Many of them are very guilt-ridden. A pertinent insight that Michael Jones offers with abortion is one way you turn a woman one way you Judaize a woman is you have her have an abortion, or you're engaged in premarital sex or sexual liberation. Inevitably, you get pregnant, then you get an abortion, and because of the guilt you feel, you can't get around that. And since you're alienated, from the church, you don't have sacramental confession, so you seek a sort of justification in radical politics. So that's why they show up with wearing pussy hats, and that sort of thing, and they get involved.
They embrace the revolutionary spirit.
Yeah, and there's comfort in the crowd, right? Yeah, and that's how you have so many like Catholic women voting for like a Jewish governor in Pennsylvania, because they've been morally compromised, and again they're cut off, they're alienated from ways that traditionally we dealt with guilt in the West, which was confession, as opposed to the Freudian method, and which is where you sort of pathologize guilt, and you say keep doing what you're doing and rationalize, So that's broadly, and this is kind of fun. I read a year ago. Yeah, it was during the election. There's an article, Kamala's brides, the brides of the state. Remember that term? Bots.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah.
These are women like Kamala Harris who sort of drunk. They drank from the cup of sexual revolution liberation, and now they enter their 20s, their 30s, and their 40s, and they feel empty, guilty, and they're neurotic. Half of them are on prescription drugs for anxiety or some sort of drug for the pain they're feeling, emotional pain they're feeling. And these people, they become reliable, voting votes for the Democratic Party because of the choices they've made. I think Edward Dutton would call them witches, right? They become witches.
Yeah.
And so there's a psychological phenomenon to this, I think, whereas the system churns out these women, and the numbers are now legion. And they're in suburbia. Many of them are affluent, because they work, the dual income families and all that. And they're not going to look back, and they're not willing to look in the mirror and go, "Where I've made some really bad decisions." They're going to try to rationalize it, or ease their pain with drugs or wine or Xanax, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, this issue really is like a canary in a coal mine for so many other problems, right? I mean, sometimes people are like, oh well, how could this one issue be interconnected with women's sexual liberation and homosexuality and all these other problems of degeneracy? And it's like, no, well, I mean, just think about what we just talked about right here, right? It's like, okay, so you have an entire society for the last like several decades that is pushing it in all the news and the media that it's totally fine for women to get abortions. They do this on literally everything. You were mentioning Black Pilled earlier, Tim, and to the guy's credit, he's done some excellent work on particularly the media in the 90s on things like homosexuality, for example, like when Ellen first had her show on primetime, and she was like the first gay character to come out on TV and everything. And the jokes they were making in the show was, oh, okay, so where do you get your subscription to the gay club now? Here's your money or whatever, right? And it's like they always try to do these edge cases to bring it into the door. They do the same thing with abortion, right? It's like, oh well, we need to have this legal because in case of incest done by a migrant that you just let into your country from Pakistan, because but where else would this be a case, right? But the media is like, oh, well, it's just because of, the people in West Virginia or in Alabama are engaging in incestuous activities. So we need to have abortion legalized in those states, of course, because this is just happening all the time. And it's not happening in the Pakistani community we just let into Detroit or whatever, or, the cases of like rape along the southern border in El Paso, because we just let in Manuel Gonzalez here, who just went on like a rape spree or whatever. This is always how they do these things.
Yeah, and there's Norman Lear with abortion on the show Maude in 1973. Yeah, ironic. Coincidentally, just when it was 1972, I think, the fall of '72. You have Maud's there was a spinoff from All in the Family, and she had an abortion. The character did, and of course, they're presenting this issue to the public in a alleged sitcom. This was the very special episode. Remember those?
Yeah, the water cooler episodes everyone would watch back when the culture had a little bit more hegemony. And have infinite options of what they were watching all the time.
But this, Maud was in her 40s, and I think she'd just been elected to Congress or something. And I don't know if that happened. That happened later in the show or something. But I remember this was Norman Lear presenting his vision and how he framed the issue. And people were supposed to sit back and just accept, the Malibu Mafia's framing of the issue.
Well, you see this too because, so you have all these decades of propaganda slowly pushing the Overton window towards the left's direction. More and more women get caught up in this. More and more women, get abortions themselves. And when you actually hear the speeches from, they'll get various women that speak at March for Life or stuff. Some of them, had abortions in the past and immediately regretted it or something like that. And this is obviously the small minority that are vocal about it, but the majority of women who talk about this just immediately report how horrible it felt to them, to do this. It's I literally killed my own child. Kind of feels literally one of the worst things in the world you could do. But when you have such a large percentage of women that are engaging in this behavior more and more, they're just going to double down to the point of where you actually do have a substantial voting block of women. And these are the ones that are literally out in the streets protesting ICE right now in Minnesota.
And it's not just women, of course. There's Bernard Nathanson, who produced The Silent Scream in the 80s. He started the National Abortion Rights Action League in the 1960s. He's one of the key figures in getting abortion legalized. Although it was a Supreme Court decision, the Supreme Court's decision was highly political, and it wasn't, fundamental law or sort of a dispassionate reading of the law, But he himself, in his book "The Hand of God," because he eventually converted to Catholicism before he became pro-life eventually, but he claimed that he had taken part in some 75,000 abortions and 5,000 he conducted himself. He was an OBGYN in New York, and he admitted that he fudged the numbers about women dying with illegal abortion. That's so. Remember the coat hangers and all that. They claim that there are thousands of women dying a year from illegal abortions, and as if that justified abortion. But it's an emotional appeal. Abortion has to be safe, legal, and rare. That was Bill Clinton's approach. RedHawk in the 90s. But he himself admits in The Hand of God that he pressured his girlfriend to get an abortion when he was in medical school. And he says that one of the reasons why he became such a staunch advocate of abortion wasn't just because he was Jewish, although that probably factored into it, is because his own guilt, or rationalized what he did, what he had done, his own child that he had murdered, or at least had his girlfriend murder. Or get murdered rather. And so see how this would affect his psychology of it. And so he kind of covered that up with this radicalism, kind of more or less going so extreme on the other end to rationalize what he had done, what he and his girlfriend had done when they were young. But he eventually came around to it because of apparently because of ultrasound technology. And he actually saw, that's what the Silent Scream is, a vision of an unborn child recoiling and essentially screaming as it's aborted. It's interesting that he was a very prominent media figure when he was advocating for abortion, but when he started speaking out against abortion, media stopped asking him questions or interviewing him on the matter. And he admits that the way the issue was framed in the 1970s, when abortion was being debated, was whenever a politician or public figure came out against abortion, the media would immediately bring up the fact that they were Christian or Catholic. But no one ever addressed the fact that disproportionately those who worship on Saturday supposedly were advocates for legalized abortion. Meaning they didn't
imagine my shock.
They didn't address the ethnic, religious, battle lines that were being drawn here.
I did a episode for my show back in November. I rarely do solo episodes where it's just me talking, and I had the idea of, you can kind of trace like the Israeli takeover of the United States. I mean, when it's just like really complete, so like 1972, 1973. It's kind of hard not to argue that by that time it was just pretty total. And you know, I was addressing the whole thing about where, like if you're blessing Israel, those who bless Israel are blessed. And I looked at the culture and everything since 1973, and it's like, hey, what's gotten better since 1973? And the only thing I could really find is the murder rate's actually gone down, which is important. But the one thing I left out of that was abortion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if our blessings for blessing Israel and, basically saying, hey, good, take the reins of power here, own our politicians, we'll fight your wars for you, just march in, take over. When you look at everything that's happened from 1973, if it was just abortion, it would be, where are the blessings? If God blesses those who bless Israel, our blessings since 72 and 73 have been pretty damn horrific. I mean, it's like, really, if those are blessings, I'd hate to see the curses.
Yeah, it's funny. You look at 1973 as sort of an annus horribilis, I guess you could say, because you have Roe v. Wade, January 1973. You also have 1973 is when Deep Throat is allowed to play at a first-run theater in New York City. So you have pornography. You also have the Yom Kippur War and the oil shocks, right? And you have the broader economic conditions. You also have feminism peaking at this time. This is I guess you say, the high watermark of feminism. The women's lib movement, as it was known. Was that the year that Billie Jean King beat Bobby Riggs, or was that 72? I forget. It might have been 72 or 73.
Is that 75?
I thought it was earlier. 72 or 73, I think. Of course, it turns out Bobby Riggs blew it, through it, because he had gambling debts. But
it was 73.
Okay, 73. So you have Billie Jean King beating Bobby Riggs in a tennis match. Of course, Bobby Riggs, I think, was like 54, and she was 26 or 27. And also, it turns out that he did throw it. It was a PR thing, obviously. But anyway, so you have sort of the war between the sexes, feminism, pornography. This is, again, the intersection of sexual liberation, abortion, and also usury and debt. This is when wages stagnate and the credit card becomes widely used. Was it also the year that women could get credit cards?
Go off the gold standard. Too.
Yeah, it's 71, and this is the this when they bring in the petrodollar the year later, and this debt. So you have usury, sodomy, abortion, all these years being sort of being normalized and accepted, being openly promoted by all the institutions, media, education, government, and even the broader economic conditions that are being created. Because this is also,
that was the next point I was going to want to get into. Is that's like whether this is
it was 1974 when women could get secure, they could get a bank account and obtain credit cards and everything like that. So it was 74, same time frame. I mean,
yeah, right around there. I mean, whether this is a excuse to justify like the bad behavior or whatever in the people's minds or what have you, is that when surveyed, when like people are saying, oh, why need to get abortion, largely people cite it for economic reasons. And now again, you don't necessarily have to think that is the main reason why people are doing this. I mean, we all know it's elective, but that still doesn't change the fact that it is obviously much harder for young people to start families. I mean, we talked about this a bunch on this show, that the numbers came out at the end of last year, that the number of 30-year-olds in the United States who are married and own their home is only 5%, which is just staggering.
Yeah. I mean, a system that does that is a system that simply should not be allowed to exist.
Yeah, I mean, you expect, people who are sexually mature and do things that kids do for 12 years and not be able to afford homes up until that point. I mean, it's like, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, there's going to be pregnancies that happen in that point. And so like a lot of people make the calculation, obviously it's evil and it's horrible, but when you're in a society that promotes it around every corner, it's just as simple as, it's just as simple as any procedure, right? Like what they talk about. So, I mean, if it's there, people are going to use it.
And we live in a society that doesn't have the capacity to hold those who create culture, entertainment accountable anymore. There used to be mechanisms for this, like the legions of decency, and a sense that those who make entertainment, movies and stuff are accountable, or at least are on a leash, a very short leash. And that ended in the 1960s. Around 1965 with The Pawnbroker, a Holocaust film, coincidentally, which broke the production code. So they were given free reign. And within a few years, you have television becoming very, starting lecturing, being didactic, promoting the, liberalism, Norman Lear style of American freedom, these things. And there's no pushback anymore, no capacity for people to push back, for civil society to push back, because the oligarchs now are given free reign because we're all free to pursue what we want to do with our own lives. But only a few people have the capacity, only a few people are wealthy enough with the resources sort of to impact or influence people, produce magazines, glossy magazines, or to produce films. I saw a thing on YouTube is how a sci-fi movie that nobody saw affected women. And he was talking about the Stepford Wives. It came out in 1975. I remember it came out. I remember the ads for it on television for the Stepford Wives. Most people are familiar with when someone says, I like the Stepford Wives, you're kind of referring to a woman who stays at home and who robotically serves her husband, right? I mean, Pete, you probably remember it, right?
Yeah, my mom liked it for some reason.
Okay. Base and the video on YouTube goes to how what the film does is it didn't only no one really saw it. Wasn't a popular movie at all, but it was the terms were picked up in the media. The references to it and everything it was promoted on the media and everything. So it got in everyone's mind. It was sort of a meme of the day. You're a Stepford wife, stay at home mom, that sort of thing. Trapped in the kitchen. And the guys doing the video says what the film does is, by the way, the book is based on a novel by Ira Levin. Okay, for whatever.
I know. I'm shocked. I mean, that's Amish, right?
Yes.
Pennsylvania Dutch country. Okay.
It's a great name. Yeah.
What they do is they take the Catherine Ross meets up with this other lady. Who again who's liberated, and Catherine Ross is, I guess, somewhat liberated. She wants to move back to New York City. The husband decides to move him into this the town of Stepford, this idyllic, small, sort of like a bedroom community of New York, and everyone, all the women are all beautiful. They dress nicely. They go shopping. They're obedient. The husbands support them and that sort of thing. And Catherine Ross character is just offended by this, But what the film does is it takes like normal things and has the women repeat them robotically, so it sounds creepy. So they have this one woman the idea is, women are replaced by robots. That's the idea, and the robots are obedient. That's the idea. These sort of simulations of the women, and then the real women are killed, and that's the idea of the show. And there's an evil patriarchy that's doing this in the small town. But anyway, sorry, spoiler alert, right? So a movie that's 51 years old. But anyway, what the movie does is it takes these statements, like this one woman who's, I guess, presumably been replaced, and she's just saying robotically, says, I like providing a nice home for my husband and raising his children. He works so hard to give us a house, and he deserves this. And she says it in a way that's creepy, but it's perfectly normal. I mean, how is that weird? But it's presented as weird, and the only normal women are the women that have contempt for their husbands, that want something better, that, they always want to go back to the city, and they're tired of their bored life. And so this is how it's presented in the media. And of course, that idea was promoted day in and day out for the better part of 40 years, 50 years in this country, and you can't promote.
Still is.
Yeah, still is. So if your media is going to promote narcissism, egotism, consumerism, these things day in and day out on media, it's going to have its effect on the population. And that's why so many young women today aren't suitable wives or mothers, or don't want to, don't have that natural impulse to be. They don't have healthy aspirations. They want to go off and go to college and, quote, have careers, jobs, and all that.
Yeah, and all their careers are fake anyway. So
yes.
all the men that are like traditionally when you're in the workplace, obviously women shouldn't have been there in the first place, but let's ignore that for a second, right? Traditionally when you're in the workplace and women were in, roles like, a secretary position or something like that, it's actually not a bad place to actually meet, a potential husband for you. The power dynamic is natural there, meet somebody you're in the workplace with. But now through artificial things, and again, this is like a manosphere talking points are going on for the better part of 2.5 decades at this point. But it's like, well, when you have like all this corporate feminism that is artificially inflating the careers of women or the positions that they should be in, every single man that works with her already knows, like, okay, you're an insufferable bitch and your career is literally worthless. So, but because women have been told their entire lives, like, oh, like, I'm this really accomplished girl and I've worked really hard to get into this position and I work a great job with my work from home, remote corporate tech job thing where I'm sitting by the pool. And, I'm sure every guy can kind of attest to this if you're in a relationship with, girls these days or something. It's like, okay, explain to me what you do, like for your job, it's like from like Office Space, what is it you do here, and it's like, it's a joke. It's a complete joke. It's like the fuck are you talking about? You have a job. It's like if I like, just decide to call into the office one day, it's like, yeah, I'm not feeling too good. Like I can't really go in or what have you, or, just, it's just staggering to me how little work that they do and how much money they make.
One thing I've noticed, and I don't know if this is true, that women have a tendency to refer to their jobs as careers and men refer to it as jobs.
Yeah, very good point.
And it's because men know they have to do unpleasant, hard work to succeed. And there's people have looked at the numbers, and the real productive economy is overwhelmingly male, as far as resource extraction, refinement, innovation, even patents, intellectual property.
My buddy Aaron Clary wrote a book about this called "A World Without Men: An Analysis of the Female Economy." Excellent read.
Now, his tone is kind of dismissive of women, and I understand it. Obviously, we're not dismissing what women. Obviously, we're paying women actually a very huge compliment, because we're acknowledging what their natural roles are very, very important, and they've been neglected for the better part of 60 years, and we're paying the price for it now. I'm paying you a compliment, and the one thing that makes them different, the one thing they have to offer, is the fact that they can bear children and raise our young children. And everything that comes with that. That would be providing a home, providing comfort, physical comfort. These things are very important, and in their proper context, they're wonderful. They're very easily abused, of course, as you can tell. But but it's the fact is that men and women complement each other. They're not equal, and if you have a society that's obsessed with trying to make them equal, women will develop contempt for men, and men. Here's the reality is that when it comes down to sex, men are much more attracted to women than women are to men. But women need men for provision and protection. And that's how it works.
Very true.
That's how it works. And that's how, and if they don't think they need men, of course they do, because as we just mentioned, all the physical comforts of modern society actually are provided by men. In fact, the men have provided the labor-saving devices that have led women, given them the free time to be such trouble. That's one of the ironies of modernity, I guess you could say. And and another thing, you talk about abortion. Get it back to abortion. The fact that women feel free to kill their unborn children. I was watching a debate with Anna Kasparian and that what's that woman's name? Pearl Davis.
Oh yeah, Pearl. Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of insufferable because between the two of them, I think they've almost lived 70 years. There's not one child between them.
Yep.
So it's a culture of death right there. But I know some of the things Pearl says is true, but I don't know what her game is. But it's just to demoralize everybody. But
Yeah, unfortunately, but Pearl is that minister talking points just don't work when they come from a woman's mouth, because it's like, okay, you're not a man at the end of the day, sweetheart. This is just ridiculous. I mean, listen, I like Pearl. I've had no issues every time I've talked with her. She's been very, very nice to me, and she's dating one of my friends. So I mean, okay, but listen, sweetheart, this just isn't your realm. So why are you talking here? And you're talking here because you can get an artificially large platform, because men have been trained since the day that they were born in this day and age that to see women as figures of authority. A position isn't okay for men to hold unless a woman signs off on it.
Yeah, it's like a black guy telling you you're not racist, or a Jew telling you.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's exactly right.
And but so Anna Kasparian, she's upset about Israel is killing babies in Gaza, but she's perfectly fine with killing babies in the womb. But she's remember Anna goes, I married a husband. My husband, he was he was on the couch unemployed, and I love him. I'm like, geez, she just like made her husband have to be a big loser in front of everybody. I was like, nice, Anna. See how that works in the long term. But the idea of women, again, they have a right to unilateral right to kill their unborn children, which again, the one thing they really, and everything that comes with that have to offer is the giving birth, bringing life into the world and raising that, and they think they can just trivialize that or make it a choice without having an effect. But one of the major reasons why rape is considered such an awful crime is because it desecrates something that we think is sacred, which is motherhood, and also the idea of paternity, right? It's not just the physical violence or the violation of bodily autonomy. If that were the case, it wouldn't be so many jokes about men getting raped in prison, right? The references to it on police shows. So there's something, and I agree, there is something very different about the assault in the physical assault of women, and particularly rape, and it's much we consider it more brutal. It's less acceptable for me because we just see it as awful. Well, we see it as awful because it's a desecration of something. But if you, as a woman, think you have a right to kill your unborn child without anyone, a unilateral right to kill your unborn children, and that kind of spoils that, because what's sacred? Why are you any more sacred physically or worth more precious than a man then? Obviously men or women, I think biologically, or at least from a reproductive standpoint, are more precious because they can only have typically only has one child in a year. Men can have many, there's only so many eggs. Men have billions of sperm cells. So that factors into how men and women relate to one another, and also the relative balance of men and women in society, and the risks that men take and how women don't. And men are there to protect and provide, which is why it should confer men certain privileges because they have certain responsibilities. A good example is the conscription draft. The fact that men are subjected to conscription or the military draft should confer on them special political rights and responsibilities vis-a-vis to women, because they have that responsibility to protect. I've never gotten an answer from a woman after we talk about voting and all that about that. Well, what about this? Doesn't it give them special, certain privileges if there's those responsibilities? But you see my point, though. I mean, it's kind of, you can't go out and talk about we can kill our children and then claim some sort of status. You have to be protected or something. But that's again probably a carryover from a more genteel, innocent time when women didn't kill their unborn children in the millions during the year. So,
well, this is just all the spirit of the age, right? I mean, when you take into consideration the post-war consensus, I mean, the post-war consensus is don't tell people what to do. If you tell people what to do with their body, you're a fascist. If you tell women they can't have abortion, you're a eugenicist. Women are just as, women are just as useful in the workplace as men. I mean, come on, it was black women who got us to the moon, right? I mean, everyone's seen the movie.
And
I mean,
Amelia Earhart proved they're better pilots.
But so I mean, this is all to be expected. I mean, when you take into consideration everything that was destroyed from the old order, the old way of doing things, and now there is no real truth. I mean, they still let people go to church, but they've subverted the churches. They've subverted the leadership in the churches, and most of the leadership in churches now care more about racism. I don't know if you've heard that, if you've had that in the mass lately, Tim, where have you heard that one, where have you seen a priest pray to end racism?
Yeah, and last Sunday, the choir sang the Black National Anthem.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Oof.
So, yeah, it's just.
I was like, "What?
I mean,
what? This is for Robert E. Lee's birthday? Doesn't make any sense."
Yeah. So the spirit of the age is that you don't invade other countries, because that's mean, unless of course you're doing it, then it's okay. If Russia wants to do it, that's if Russia wants to invade their neighbor, and people who are basically blood, I mean, their DNA matches up 98%, that's a problem. But I mean, we have to go chasing monsters all over the world, because we're the good guys. There's good guys and there's bad guys, and part of being the good guys is you let women murder their kids. And I mean, it's just all a part of this order.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like, I mean, there's also something very primal about this too, because you see like the kinds of guys that are at these like pink pussy hat marches, and the same kind of guys who like out in the streets in Minnesota or what have you, and they're all like the stereotypical soy jack guy that we're all familiar with, right? But there's something that goes into the deep primal brain of women too, because they know deep down that the main job that men have is to sharpen a stick and then go shove it in somebody's face, right? To literally to protect the women and children back home. And if this guy is going out of his way to be like, an ally and do a sneaky fucker game to try and get in with like these chicks saying, oh, we really got to make sure they have the right to murder my unborn child. It's like, well, what do you expect? Like how they're going to treat you, as a response? They can't respect you if you're this kind of guy.
No,
there's a comment. There's a comment here I wanted to highlight, because it's a really good comment when you think about it. At John Gore 73 here, he said Satan might be the prince of darkness, but at least he's not racist. And that's really important, because you can be a Satanist in this culture and no one's going to attack you, because Satanists just aren't. They're not racists. Satan hates everyone equally, and that's perfectly fine. But God chooses people. He chooses people to like, and he doesn't like others. Esau, Jacob? What was it? Esau he hated. Who did he love? Jacob he loved. I mean, that's terrible.
He obviously doesn't. So he obviously doesn't believe in equality.
Yeah,
he made people so. He made people so different. The sexes and various groups so different. I mean, it's and his creation needs to be corrected, right? So
yeah, I mean, there's something wrong if people can't, if God, who's good, discriminates, but Satan hates everyone equally. I mean, in an egalitarian world, you got to choose Satan, right?
I was reading my daughter, little daughter, youngest one in our family, was given a Bible story books by her I guess her cousin, who's older. And I was reading her stories. I was reading Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden. and it explains to him the weaknesses of women and man and all that. The way it explained it was very funny. It goes, God confronts Adam after they've eaten from the tree of knowledge. Adam goes, it wasn't me. It was that woman you gave me. That woman. And I had to just crack it up. It was that woman. She made me do it, and God rebukes him for that.
She was defective.
It was very funny. He's trying to blame because we know the story there is Eve, because she was bored in paradise, wanted to do this, and because Adam's failing was what? Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what God says to him, right? It's like, because you have listened to the woman and eaten from the tree. It's like the first thing he says is not, you've eaten from the tree. It's because you've listened to the woman. It's like, oh.
Now, I mean, in fairness is good. Again, I've talked to a lot of women, and most of the women I talk to are Catholic and pro-life, and they're not neurotic and insane because they're not living lives that drive them neurotic or insane. They have a healthy life. Isn't to say they don't have character flaws like all of us do, but we're speaking broadly speaking, the general culture. Obviously, I'm like in a subculture. But again, unless you have the proper proscriptions and prescriptions and rules, and if you have a permissive society like ours is today, I would say the majority of women will cease being the nurturing, figures that they should be, because they themselves have embraced the satanic spirit of our age, and so that's why you assume many of them behaving so poorly now.
Oh yeah, and in addition to that, one of the other topics that we were discussing earlier, to circle back to, is that most of them are all just trained to be defective men at this point. Is the other problem too?
There's just you've noticed just sort of a undeniable insecurity you see in them, because they're trying to be something they're not, and they just become unhappy.
Yeah, it's so interesting that this comes up, because I'm sure a lot of the younger guys in the chat can definitely attest to this, but it's very, very interesting to see how women, when you get in a relationship with them today, not just talk about valuing the career and stuff, but the way they perceive as being most effective and most helpful to the relationship and to the family is, well, I want to go and work, or and even if they don't want to work, their assumption is that they're doing something bad by not wanting to work. It's like that's the default. It's like, well, my instincts are telling me not to work, but is the man going to judge me harshly for it, or am I not contributing if I'm not working or something? There's just a complete disconnect of what men actually want out of a relationship.
Well, yeah, they don't want to be a Stepford wife, right? And stay at home, and even the idea that you have something called a traditional wife thing, right? As if there's something else, right? You have to distinguish that, right?
Yeah.
Is a sign of decadent of our age. And again, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the way the economy is structured, when women poured into the workforce, wages were effectively halved, and you also had the spiraling debt, which is inflationary, so the cost of living going up, and also with dual incomes, you have also much more consumption, so prices go up.
Oh yeah.
The price of houses go up and that sort of thing. And this shifts sort of lifestyle expectations and all that. So, obviously you have a two-income couple with no kids is going to consume a lot more, and may even add statistically to the GDP, but they're not having any children. Whereas a one-income couple won't spend as much, but they're having children, and a lot of the money is being invested in children, the human capital. And what happens is, eventually, over a couple of generations, because you have a much lower birth rate and it drops below replacement level, you're literally losing a population, which is the ultimate source of capital in any economy, are the people. There was Janet Yellen, I think, a few years ago. I mean, she was she might have been Secretary of the Treasury at the time, or I think she was Secretary of the Treasury at the time, but she was pontificating. It might have been Fed. I forget which role she served.
I think she was Fed chair.
Yeah, she did both at different times, I think. But Janet Yellen, of course, she is one of them, of course. And she's talking about abortion and legal. For some reason, she's talking about legalized abortion. And I think it might have been around 2022, Was she Treasury Secretary for Biden? Am I wrong about that?
She was one of those.
Obama. But she was saying that abortion is good because it allows women to go out and work and adds to the GDP. Not thinking, when you have children grow up and work and actually add value, whether it's providing children, the next generation, or providing a labor force. You're killing off a labor force. This is what usury eventually does, by the way, because usury grinds labor into the ground, which makes it so people can't have families, or have less children. Then you find yourself without a labor force for the economy, and you try to make up for it in illegal immigration or AI or robotics or something, some sort of weird like Elon Musk fantasy or something,
Yeah,
but ultimately, it's a culture of death. It's a culture of death. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yaki talked about that. Yeah, Yaki talked about that in Imperium. How as soon as you start adding to the native population, birth rates drop. Not only because of prices can get higher and you're destroying the culture, but also there are like true biological factors where women, if you're importing people who have absolutely nothing to do with your culture, that can affect women's reproductive cycles because they get into a fight or flight mode because they're seeing people who are historically their enemies.
Oh yeah, I mean, just think about it. I mean, and civilization's been around for 8,000 years or so, and really it's only now in the last 50 years that we have mass immigration to a point where it's like the only time you had this many foreigners living amongst your population would be like when the Mongols were invading your town or something like that. So obviously it's not a safe time for you to be having children.
Yeah, it's almost like war has a similar effect from it. Yeah. The stress lowers fertility. And another thing is this is where hypergamy kicks in, which is a constant.
Oh yeah.
If the native male population isn't seen as being the primary source of provision and protection, women will pick the winners and drop the losers. And that's why women tend to be less loyal, at least from an ethnic standpoint, right? If you celebrate it, if you promote it, they will go with those who can provide, and that's why you have this sort of this recent report. What was that that article in Compact, The Lost Generation, about white men?
Yeah,
that dealt with largely like cultural gatekeeping jobs, elite jobs, but it radiates down where the opportunities aren't there for young ethnic white men to support families, and that is a way to keep them from finding wives and having children and reducing the population. It's one way to accelerate the browning of the country. So, which we're not supposed to notice, but they talk about doing it.
Oh yeah, it's not happening, but it's a good thing. Yeah.
Tucker's monologue yesterday on the Great Replacement was probably
it was excellent.
Some of the best stuff to get out there. Considering considering his audience.
Yeah, he's had a pretty fire week between that and the Peter Brimlow interview.
Oh yeah. Why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Why are they doing that? Why do they want to replace us? I don't hate anybody. I'm not an anti-Semite. We got the award, Tucker. Either way,
people really just I mean, it's still wild to me that people still don't really understand, like, what his wash shtick is at this point, where it's like, okay, basically every episode for the last year has been, like the nation of Israel is great. Now I'm going to talk about how they suck in the worst place in the world for the next hour. Like,
I love Israel.
Yeah.
Then he goes on this 45-minute thing.
He's actually recently been saying, that he said the other day he doesn't like Israel. I like the people, he said, but he doesn't, I like he actually says I like some of the people, but I don't really like the country, and so it's, and also the way he's standing up for white people, for his race, is really contradicting stuff that he said like just a year ago.
Yeah.
Where he's like, oh, well, I don't care about my ethnicity. There's nothing about it. And he's just leaning into it. And, from what I understand in private, a lot of the things that he, like when he's going to the White House and he's talking to Trump, that's his like main focus is just the anti-white, how this country is anti-white. And if this country stops being white, it stops being this country. But, it's like, I mean, one of the things I talked about in my Where Are the Blessings episode was in 1973, it was like the country was like 82% white and the black population was like 12 or 13%. So that's a total 95%. It was like 5% from other places.
Mhm.
And now the country allegedly is 56% white. It could be less than that. If it's 56, if it's say it's 50% white and you still have 13% blacks, that means what, 37% of it is like mystery meat from other places.
Mhm.
Yeah. Totally emergent behavior, emergent factors, totally the natural movement of people who come into a place from time to time, guys. There's nothing suspicious about this whatsoever. It isn't organized by all of our elites and our governments throughout the entire West, giant network of NGOs, billions upon billions of dollars. No, come on.
I just read somewhere that there's 55 separate organizations that are providing legal services for those arrested in Minnesota for the anti-ICE protest.
Jeez.
Now, who's funding all that?
There she is. We were talking about her earlier. She made an appearance. Yeah.
And this is the things that people like Tucker are discovering. Again, there was a lot of this nonsense. I mean, there's all this anti-white stuff in the 70s, but when it was cute when you're 82% of the population because it's marginal. It has to be marginal. But now, it's reaching critical mass, and the velocity of change is evidence, prima facie case for a conspiracy, if you will. You don't get that rapid change in demographics without a program or an operation being carried out, and which is also a sign of malevolence. It also indicates that the normal functions of assimilation and natural, you could say cross-pollination, which would smooth out differences, haven't been allowed to develop. So there's going to be, it's social engineering, and social engineering is inevitably breeds conflict.
Oh, but come on, Tim. All these groups that we're letting in are natural conservatives. Come on, we've told about that for decades.
No, I mean it's different if you have. I mean, America's always going to have a Hispanic population because it expanded into the Southwest. Just like it had Catholics because of, expanding into Louisiana, the Southwest, and not to mention the fact what was happening in Ireland and what the British were doing. So you have, and the fact you needed so many Irish to go fight in the Union Army to suppress the South. That's all that works out. But, immigration is always a question of how many, who, and when. And it's ridiculous to say that just because so many came in and of certain people came in the 1880s or 1840s, you have to do it now. You have to, develop, have to allow infinity Indians or millions of Somalis into the country.
Yeah. Sean O'Connor came in 1860 to fight the South, and now that means you got to let in Jigaboo Jackson and his entire family, and
finance their welfare schemes, which politicians benefit from, But but here we are, three guys talking about abortion and women's reproductive rights is evidently, which is how it should be. Because if you leave it up to women, what happens?
Yeah.
Right?
We want to win, but not like that.
It's like you. What do you know? Is that what was it? Gloria Steinem said. She said something to the effect that if men could get pregnant, abortion would be a sacrament or something.
Yeah,
right.
And she was also famous for saying, "Women need men like a fish needs a bicycle." It's like, thanks, sweetheart.
Well, she was also CIA. It turns out.
Yeah, and it was men who financed her magazine, who built the building she worked in, and the media she was promoted in, and all the technology. It's like, come on! It's like it's so stupid. It's almost childish, the rhetoric. As if it's like,
Well, we've had a pretty expansive discussion about how this issue ties into a lot of other problems that have been occurring in the United States over the last several decades.
Mhm.
This issue always gets play in election years. It's going to return to the forefront come the fall this year, when I'm sure more states are going to put it on the ballot. I mean, we know Virginia was in the news this week because it's potentially going to get added to the constitution of the state if it's voted into law this fall. So I'm sure there'll be many more stories on this issue coming up pretty soon. But why don't we hit through these super chats and we'll call it a night, gentlemen.
Okay.
All righty. Scrolling up to the top here. We've got $2 from No, I'm Not Grim from Red Hood. He says, legendary thumbnail. Yes, indeed. Our thumbnail guy does fantastic work every week. All right.
Doug did a really good job with that one.
Yeah. Yes, he did. Let's see. Let nobody say that we don't have the best theme song and the best thumbnails in the entire sphere, because we totally do. All right. John Marmaduke for $5 says, good evening, all. Well, good evening to you, sir. Thank you. Fritz Imperial, friend of the show, for $3 says, I want Lemon in chains. Make an example. Yeah, I mean, we all want Don Lemon in chains, of course. Let's see.
Is it Don Lemon or Don Lemon?
I don't know. I try not to think about these unsavory characters. Imagine being so retarded that Elon Musk fires you within like 2 days of getting a contract on Twitter. Do you remember like Elon was like, "Oh, people are going to be on Twitter and we're going to have their own little shows and partnerships and stuff." And one of the first people he snagged was Don Lemon. Had one interview with him, saw this guy was just completely retarded, and immediately fired him.
Has he been arrested yet? I know they arrested those two ladies, those two fat black women.
Apparently the judge is refusing to refuse. There was a judge who said that there wasn't enough there, and then it turns out that the judge, let me see, I have it on my timeline. The judge is
the judge's wife was in like Keith Ellison's office or something like that.
Yeah, the judge's wife is connected to the magistrate judge that refused to sign off on Don Lemon's arrest warrant is married to an assistant AG in Keith Ellison's Minnesota office.
I mean, it's again, this is the problem. The judiciary has already been destroyed. So whatever Trump does, he can't destroy something that's already been destroyed.
Oh yeah,
so politicized. Keith Ellison said that going and storming the church was First Amendment protected. Now, actually, it's not. But if I call Keith Ellison that is covered by the First Amendment. Actually,
faggot.
Yeah. If I call Don Lemon a faggot, that is covered by the First Amendment. But not going in the church and disrupting a service for the purpose of disrupting the service is not. It's a violation, and First Amendment is also a violation of a specific federal law, which the liberals passed, by the way, for abortion.
What is a massive fucking faggot?
I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, the left's not going to stop. They're going to continue to escalate.
Oh,
there's no way. There's no brakes on this Jacobin train. So
yeah, Bolsheviks and Jacobins, and you can't have conversations with these people, much as live with them, and that's the issue we're confronted with.
All right.
You actually can shoot them in the face.
In Minecraft,
law enforcement, legally, the people who are allowed to do that can actually do it. I'm not saying we're gonna. I don't recommend anyone listening to this, unless you are law enforcement, do that. But you protect yourself when it needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Pow! Right in the
the face of a generation. That was just I'm tired. I'm tired, Mr. Mustache Man. Pow.
Well, with Renee Good gone on to her eternal reward, I guess she won't have any more kids. She won't be able to abuse any more kids, right?
Yeah, indeed. Solid Snake 1964 for $10. He did not get the first super chat in this week. How dare you, sir? It says, evening, gents. Look like I wasn't first due to preparation for the storm. Hope you all in the areas getting hit by the snowstorm will stay safe and stay warm. Thank the Lord that this heinous law was overturned. I pray that the evil of abortion will be finally ended someday. Well, someday it will be. That I am sure of. So salute. Thank you, sir.
Real Americans.
Yes, and you, sir, are a real American. Thank you. TK sends us $2. A salute. Did I beat Solid Snake this time? You did. You did. Nice job. Dawn Browning, the only woman that listens to this show, sends us $10 Australian and a super sticker of a anthropomorphic hippo spinning in a gaming chair. Well, thank you, Dawn Browning, for representing the fairer sex in the audience tonight, as ever. Thank you. X-Comer for $25 says, canceled work tomorrow because of the unbelievable cold. Still paying my employees because it's the white thing to do. I hope my brothers in the South are prepared for the storm. Yeah, I mean, everyone bundle up. I mean, remember a couple of years ago when people froze to death in their homes in Dallas because people weren't prepared for the icy conditions. So everyone keep your heads on a swivel out there. And if you are in a local OGC chapter and are in need of assistance in some way or another, be sure to reach out to your regional liaisons, and the whole OGC network can help you in these trying times. So moving on to Sir Blank sends us $2. Real patriots panic buy milk, bread, and stay warm. Yes.
Real Americans.
Yes. Trevor subscribed for $5. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate that. Yeah, there are channel memberships, but you know, nobody really ever does it. But yes, you guys can do that. Seasider sends us $10 and a salute, as he does every week. Thank you very much.
Real Americans.
And you, sir, are a real American. Trevor sends us $3. Entropy is a mess, or I'm showing my midwittery, but still want to give y'all more and YouTube less. Yeah, try and give it as much as Entropy as possible, even though it is a little finicky. All right, no curtain for 10 Canadian dollars. Says, hi, Tim. I want to take the opportunity to thank you for your exceptional work over the years. You have this razor sharp intellect that cuts through all the noise and nonsense. Thank you, and God bless.
Oh, I'll cut and paste that shirt to my wife.
There you go.
They're in Canada. That's from Canada.
Yeah, it's that's what it says.
Famous fentanyl overdose deaths.
Alrighty. Moving on. Let's go to Chansey for $23.45. Says, it's amazing how much of our popular culture has been shaped by subversive propaganda to the point that the most patriotic of our guys unconsciously mouth the virtues of our enemies. It's going to be a long road ahead, brothers. Yes, it will be. Yeah, it's crazy. You know, you just find these mind worms in your brain that just get implanted there at a young age. You know, it's wild.
Yeah, internalize the command of your oppressors. Yeah.
City Break Dancer Man, always one of my favorite names of super chatters. Thank you. Sends us $5 and a salute. Thank you.
Real Americans.
Yes. No, I'm not Grim from Red Hood sends another $2. Literally psyoped from the jump. Yes, there's definitely a big problem for sure. Speaking of psyops, we got Capitalissimo, who talks about psyops all the time on Library of Mass Destruction on Monday with our good friend, Mr. Christopher Sandbatch. People be sure to tune into that. For $5, he says, if you super chat the OGC enough, the GDP will go up enough for the migrants to go home and the women to stay home. Hell yeah.
They should tax remittances and give you a cut.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
Amazing how the United States government has found the one thing it doesn't want to tax. That makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, suddenly they're libertarian.
Yeah. Mikey Machine sends us $10 and a salute. Thank you.
Real Americans.
Yes, you are a real American. And then finally, we got Vulpes Persona for $5, sends us a salute. He's
real Americans.
Yes, real American indeed. Thank you, Mr. Patton. Appreciate it. Alrighty, that is us all caught up on the super chats. Pete, any final words? Anything to promote?
Yeah, release episode 2. Thomas and I are doing a quick little series on how Germany was interfacing with the Muslim world before and during World War II. There's some interest there that people have expressed, and it's really interesting history when you take into consideration the diplomacy and basically how the Muslim world had become part of the Axis.
All right, very interesting. Your talks with Thomas are very insightful and educational every single time.
Well, they're not really talks with Thomas. It's Thomas just basically, doing a college lecture course.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I always enjoy my road trips I get to take with Thomas because it's just a free podcast, so just there you go. Yeah. All right. And Tim, thank you for coming on the show, sir. Any final words or promotions?
No, just thanks for having me on. It was fun, despite the topic. It's always nice to have a chat with two like-minded guys.
We'll have to do it again at some point.
Just God bless America.
Hell yeah. I think we can all.
God bless Americans.
Americans, yeah.
You're here. Alrighty. And one more super chat has come in under the wire here. Florida Man Adventures. That's another good name for a super chatter for $25. He sends us a salute. Have you seen the attempt by Islamic LLCs to form another epic city in Vero Beach, Florida? Check at Trust DML on X. Oh, really? Okay.
Real Americans.
All right. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. You, sir, are a real American. No, we will have to send up the bat symbol on this one and get people to pay attention to this. But I'm not surprised. These people are getting bolder and bolder.
You would think the Jewish community in Florida would stop this, but I don't know. Did anybody see the article this morning? It was in the Jerusalem Post, talking about how invoking the Torah, Minnesota Jews mobilize against ICE operations. Minnesota's Jewish community is speaking out against ICE raids, invoking Torah teachings on welcoming the stranger and mobilizing protests across the Twin Cities. Notice they're not advocating for this in Israel.
From the river to the sea, Israel backstabbed me.
Every single time. Yes.
I mean, these Somalis are Muslims, and they don't want to get rid of them. They're a Muslim community in Florida, where like you can't get elected office unless elected governor unless you go down to West Palm Beach and pray towards the Holocaust Museum 3 or 4 times a day, 5 times a day. I mean, what the fuck is going on here?
I mean, it's just like Peter Brimlow was talking about in his interview with Tucker. There's a reason why they want all these people in the country because we're not going to focus on a certain group. So shocking that. Anyway, so. Well, we're going to wrap this one up here. We'll be back next week on Monday with American Spirits, Chapter House on Wednesday, and another episode of Pony Express Radio next Thursday. Check out all the sponsors in the description below, and we'll see you guys next week. Everyone stay warm.
When I pass on my good genes to my sons, they're going to join the old glory.